Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And today, Microsoft announced an absolute megaton just 24 hours before pre-orders open up for the Xbox Series. I didn't know if I was ever actually going to get to use that word, megaton, but yeah, Xbox made a massive acquisition today that has the potential of changing the entire landscape for gaming. I mean, I'm not sure if I've ever seen an announcement bigger than the acquisition that Xbox made today, so we're going to talk about that and what all of this means for Xbox, and there is a lot to go over here. In fact, there is news within the news. Now, we do have some other things to talk about today as well, such as Sony apologizing for the pre-order blunders, we got a Mass Effect Trilogy update, and more, so stick around for that as well. But because this is such massive news, and I know there are a lot of questions surrounding this acquisition, I want to get right into the Xbox stuff. So yes, Microsoft reached an agreement to acquire ZeniMax Media and its game publisher, Bethesda, for $7.5 billion. That is absolutely insane. And yeah, this does include all of their studios and their IPs, which are some of the biggest intellectual properties in the entire game industry, such as The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Prey, Dishonored, and the list goes on and on. Now, we have talked about Xbox making more studio acquisitions in the past. They have made it pretty obvious that they were looking to make more acquisitions as they prepared their investors, but I am shocked that they managed to get Bethesda. But let's take a look at those 8 studios involved in this acquisition. Bethesda Studios, id Software, ZeniMax Online, Arcane Studios, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog Games, and Roadhouse Studios are now all owned by Xbox. This brings Xbox Studios up to a total of 23 studios, and I want to let that sink into everybody's mind for just a moment. Back in 2016, Xbox shut down Lionhead among several other developers, and this was an all-time low point for Xbox and its fans. They were left with just 6 studios, and things were not looking good. Fast forward to now though, and they have 23 studios, and very talented ones at that. If you really think about it, Xbox pretty much owns the Western RPG market now. They have at least 4 studios working on big AAA RPGs: inXile, Playground Games, Bethesda, and Obsidian Entertainment, and that last one is actually pretty amusing. Technically, Obsidian could finally work on Fallout New Vegas 2 with Xbox owning the IP, and Obsidian did respond to that by simply throwing their hands up in the air on Twitter. So hey, you never know. It could end up happening, which I'm sure a lot of fans would love, considering many view that as the best Fallout game. Also throw in Xbox's RPGs like Fable, Avowed, The Outer Worlds, and the big AAA game inXile is working on. Of course though, if you look at Bethesda Studios alone, they have massive IP and potential. Xbox right now will get games like Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 on Xbox Game Pass, day one. I mean, The Elder Scrolls is one of the most popular Western RPG franchises out right now, especially with Skyrim. I've always said it, but Xbox Game Pass is the best deal in gaming, and if you just look at the last month alone, it's gotten even better than it already was. They somehow managed to get EA Play to release all of their games on Xbox Game Pass, and then you add Bethesda alongside that, games like Doom and Dishonored coming to Xbox Game Pass, day one. Yeah, the value of Xbox Game Pass is easily the best in all gaming, and frankly, it's not even close. One of the more interesting studios involved in this deal though, is one that many aren't paying attention to: Tango Gameworks, and the reason this one is so interesting is because it's a Japanese studio, and this is something else that we have talked a lot about on this channel. We knew that Xbox wanted to acquire a Japanese studio, and well, now they got one. A lot of people thought this was not possible, but I guess after paying $7.5 billion, well, they got one. They are the developers behind Evil Within and the upcoming Ghostwire, which really leads me into this next part. Yes, Ghostwire is a timed PlayStation 5 exclusive, along with Deathloop, which is being developed by the now-owned Xbox developer Arcane Studios. So what does this acquisition mean for those games? Will they still be timed exclusives for the PlayStation 5? Yes, Xbox does have to honor those agreements or any contract made prior to this acquisition, though technically, Sony will be paying Microsoft to keep it off of the Xbox platforms. In retrospect, it might not have been such a smart move buying out all of these third-party timed exclusives, but that's for a whole different subject. The other big question going around, though, is about exclusivity. This is something everybody wants to know. Will Xbox go the Minecraft route and make Bethesda games multi-platform, or will it be like their other studios and be exclusive to Xbox? Well, I actually think that we got a hint as to how all of this is going to play out in the Xbox PR statement, where they specifically say that the future Bethesda games will be going to Xbox and PC with Xbox Game Pass Day 1 releases. They did not mention other platforms, but after that there is a newer report that says that they do intend on bringing future Bethesda games to Xbox, PC, and on a case-by-case basis, other consoles. That kind of sounds like very few games will be coming to other platforms. Games like The Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76 will of course continue to go to PlayStation platforms, and based off of Microsoft and Nintendo's history, they may support the Switch sometimes. Games like The Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield, though, will likely be Xbox and PC only. I did see some fans latch onto the idea of them being multi-platform because Bethesda said this is about more than one system or screen, but that's likely referring to xCloud. This is the entire strategy of xCloud, where they're enabling billions of gamers to play Xbox games on their phone, PC, or Xbox consoles. Now, this is just me speculating, but based off what we do know right now, I would expect the wide majority of games from Bethesda to be Xbox exclusives. If you just look at what Xbox has done in the past, they do honor contracts made before acquisitions, such as The Outer Worlds, Psychonauts, and Wastelands 3. In all of these cases, they were already announced for specific platforms and either made agreements with another publisher beforehand or with fans through places like Kickstarter. So if a game is in a situation like that, such as Deathloop and Ghostwire, sure, they will appear on other platforms, but I don't think it's likely for other games going forward. Again, I'm just speculating, but Xbox is putting themselves in prime position to sell Xbox Game Pass and Xbox consoles. They have mentioned that in the past, that the adoption rate of Xbox Game Pass is higher on Xbox consoles than other platforms. That is their driving force for Xbox Game Pass, and that's why they're going to want to put games like Starfield on Xbox exclusively. That would drive Xbox Game Pass subscriptions up dramatically. This isn't the same situation as Minecraft, where it was already available on every other platform before they acquired it. These will be brand new games, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. One announcement made, though, was just a little bit hidden with this massive acquisition, and that is that Xbox Game Pass has officially passed 15 million subscribers. It did reach 10 million less than just 6 months ago, so Xbox Game Pass is growing rapidly, and I fully expect that to continue with this announcement. And gamers buying into new consoles this holiday, it should grow much, much more. I would not be surprised at all if they reach 20 million by next year. That might be just a little too ambitious on my part, but holidays are always huge, and with the Xbox Series on the horizon, I do think it's very possible. I will ask you though, what do you think of this acquisition, and do you think games like Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 will be exclusive to the Xbox going forward? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about some other things happening in the gaming world though. PlayStation certainly had a very interesting week last week as they revealed the PlayStation 5 price at their showcase. Overall, I thought that they put together a pretty solid event, even though there was some misleading parts to it. But one thing is for certain, the pre-orders were a huge mess, where Sony didn't really announce anything. You would have thought that they would have talked about this during their event, but that did not happen. Instead, Jeff Keighley announced it after the event, and soon after, retailers just started opening up pre-orders. There was no preparation whatsoever for these pre-orders, which means a lot of very passionate fans just missed out on the opportunity to pre-order the PlayStation 5. While Sony does know that they messed up here and they apologize for the pre-order confusion, and the real good news here is that more pre-orders will go up over the next few days. So you might want to pay attention to different retailers because I'm sure they will sell out quick. But if you get lucky, you might be able to get yourself a PlayStation 5. Now with that said, there has been multiple reports about the PlayStation 5 physical and digital split. From what it sounds like, retailers are carrying much more physical versions of the PlayStation 5, and we're probably looking at 75% of PlayStation 5s being physical. It might even be more than that, so those digital models will be extremely limited, which does make sense. Retailers do not want to carry digital-only consoles because they want to sell games. Also, I imagine Sony is taking a pretty big loss on that digital model, and from my understanding, there are already reports of the Xbox Series being in a similar situation. There will be much more Series X models on the market early on than the Series S. This will probably balance out over time, but as for this holiday, it may be hard to find a digital PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series S. Now, we also got the measurements of the PlayStation 5, and this thing is absolutely massive. It's actually officially the biggest console ever made from the big three. Yeah, it's bigger than the PlayStation 3 and the original Xbox, which were both big in their own right. I mean, honestly, a lot of people were surprised by the Series X when that was revealed, but the PlayStation 5 is even bigger than the Series X. So let's take a look at this thing. The PlayStation 5 is 15.35 inches wide, 10.23 inches deep, and the height is 4.09 inches. Yeah, so this thing is a monster in terms of how big it actually is, and you might want to go do some measurements with your entertainment center. I do think that some people are probably going to have some trouble finding this thing a home when they buy it this holiday. Some may even have to invest in a media cabinet, which is probably where I'm going to put this thing myself. I know some entertainment centers have tight compartments, and they might be a little hard to fit with these big, huge consoles coming to the market. Moving on, the Mass Effect Trilogy is once again back in the news. This is a game that has leaked on multiple occasions by this point, but now we are seeing a new listing for the Mass Effect Trilogy from a Czech retailer. What's interesting is the platforms listed though. It has the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch listed, and I know Nintendo fans would be thrilled if the Mass Effect Trilogy releases on the Switch. Personally, I think it's the perfect platform to bring Mass Effect to. The Switch should easily be able to handle Mass Effect technically, unless they're doing a huge graphical overhaul to it. Mass Effect is one of the best trilogies ever made, and I think it would sell really well on the Switch. It might even have the potential to sell more on the Switch than other platforms. The Switch is a very hot device, and if a third-party game is done right, Nintendo fans will absolutely buy into it. The problem, though, is EA, and even though it's more than a logical decision to make to bring Mass Effect to the Switch, it's hard to tell what EA will do. Either way, none of this is confirmed, but I do imagine we will get an official announcement rather soon. Hopefully it will come to the Switch, but I'm pretty positive we will at the very least get an Xbox and PlayStation version. On to our last topic though, Hades has went on to sell 1 million copies. It did release last week on the Nintendo Switch and came out of early access for PC, and critics are absolutely raving over this game. It currently sits at a 92 overall score on Metacritic, and well-deserved too. I picked this game up over the weekend and it's a blast to play. Probably one of the best independent games on the market as of this moment. Those sales numbers though are very impressive. It did sell 700,000 in early access, but in less than just 1 week, it sold another 300,000, and I imagine it's probably doing incredibly well on the Switch. I think the Switch is the perfect platform for independent games like this, and Nintendo fans seem to love these type of games. But if you haven't picked up Hades yet, I do recommend it as it is a very fun game with really well-made characters. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.